Hi, welcome back to Adventures in Bad Parenting and Other Weird Stories. I'm excited about this episode. This is episode 7, Doctors, German Hospitals, and Cowboy Dentists. If you have children, chances are you're going to see more doctors and hospitals and dentists than you ever wanted to. I'm always telling my wife, stop taking the kids to the dentist. Like, you're wasting money. If they get a cavity, their teeth are going to fall out anyway in a few years, and, we'll be fine. The tooth will fall out, a new one grows in, just like sharks, they'll be okay. If they have a cavity or something wrong with their arm or something, yeah, go see a doctor or dentist, something, because I don't think those grow back, like starfish or whatever. But the teeth, this is a waste of time. My wife, because the kids have to go to the dentist, she thinks I need to. So she's scheduled dental appointments and cleanings and stuff like that for me. And I just call and cancel them. And then she gets really, really mad. But I just figure, the kids go to doctors and dentists enough to cover down for me. Alright, so this is chapter 1 of episode 7. Kannst du hear mich? My first experience with doctors and hospitals and all of that since my first kid was born was when I got sent to a German hospital. My back was kind of a mess after a while when I was in the army. And I kept, being like, no, I'm fine. Don't complain. Don't whine. But I got a cold, and I spent all night coughing, and I think that coughing makes your muscles tense up in your back or something. So I stumbled to formation, and they saw I was walking funny and sent me to sick call. Finally, I got sent to the German hospital. If you remember some of the past episodes, this was the German hospital where they had lots and lots of beer in the cafeteria, which I thought was funny. And I'm laying on this cot, like on a gurney. And finally, someone comes up to me and says in English, "We have many people. You are okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, sort of." And they were like, yeah, okay, you wait. And I was like, okay, cool. So I'm laying there, and they start wheeling in, like, the old people for the day. I guess I didn't put two and two together that a lot of people who go to hospitals are not just young kids like my own, but old people. And there were a lot of them, very, very old German men who probably fought in the war. I didn't want to ask a lot of questions, but they were being wheeled in at different times. And what freaked me out, again, I'm kind of nervous because I've never really had to deal with hospitals much. I assume, they're going to cut off a limb at any time. And what happens, but this old German guy is laying there close to me on his special gurney cart thing. And a German, I don't know, orderly, doctor, I don't know, gets all close in the German guy's face and yells, "Kannst du hear mich?" Or I think something to that effect. Basically, he was like, "Can you hear me?" And I was like, oh my gosh, it's like a war movie. Like, they're yelling in German. Bad things are going to start to happen here at any time. And it turns out, I guess, help me out. You're welcome to share medical stuff if you know. But I sort of think there wasn't any aggression or violence or, like, menacing going on. I think, like, that guy was just super old and they didn't even know if he was responsive. So one way to find out is to yell in someone's face. Again, I'm not a doctor. Please shed some light on this. And I think they were yelling in German, not because it's scary, but because they are German and can't help it. But anyway, that was chapter 1 of my adult experiences in a hospital, and it wasn't fun. All right, so on the lighter side, chapter 2, Dr. Gizmo. My real doctor for this procedure I had stateside years later wasn't named Dr. Gizmo. He was actually named Dr. Jeffrey Donner, which sounds a lot like, Jeffrey Dahmer, not the kind of guy you want to be unconscious around. I was even joking with my friend, like, dude, can you come and just be there in the operating room while they're working on me? Don't touch anything, don't get up, but, like, you can tell me if they try anything funny or if they point to my fat belly and make fun of it. I don't know, help me out. I get called by the doctor's office before I need to go in the next day for, like, the pre-op brief or whatever, and she's like, yeah, make sure you do this and that and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, and don't eat anything after midnight. And I was like a gremlin. There was just silence on the phone. I'm like, oh, crap. She has no sense of humor. But then she got it. It took her a while, and she was like, hey. I don't know what my problem is. I think I'm just bored and feel isolated and lonely sometimes, even though I have a house full of children and a wife, and we've talked about all the animals that live there. So I have this weird need to turn everything into, like, my own private stand-up comedy. And it's fun when it works, but you feel really even more sad and alienated and lonely when it doesn't work, and people are just like, yeah. I'll settle for just not being understood any day rather than people know what you were trying to do. They understood the joke. just didn't think it was funny at all. All right, chapter 3, dead bodies everywhere. So recently my wife went in for an ACL surgery. She was like, oh, let's go skiing. And I was like, no, I'm good. But I went skiing for the first time in my life with her, and I'm lucky I went with her because that was the time she ripped her ACL, and all 3 kids were with her. So anyway, we go in, and this was like the nicest doctor ever. This guy was squared away and didn't have a scary name. He sits us down. He starts to give us the pre-op brief. The doctor says something to the effect of, I think I can take like some part of your body and put it in where the ACL is supposed to go. I think that's what he said. But then he said, but if not, we have, some cadaver tissue. And right away, if you know me, I have some sort of inappropriate obsession with creepy, dark, evil things. So when I hear, we have cadaver tissue, I picture a big dead body with a sheet over it somewhere in back, next to like the cleaning supplies or something. And then when they need a part, like an auto body shop, they just go in there and slice off a piece that they need or want or think would look better. And the problem is what I just told you, I said it aloud to the doctor. And he stops his brief. Like, this is an important thing. He's going to, like, sedate my wife and cut her open. And I'm talking about dead bodies like a junkyard. And he looks at me and says, this guy's weird. And, I hear that all the time. I don't know. It doesn't really faze me. But my wife, she just kind of smiled and nodded because that's what you have to do when you live with me. And the person who you're going to be dependent on for at least a week or two says things like this in a medical setting. I was mad when I found out that they didn't have a dead body and they wouldn't let me see it anyway. And he said it was actually just a little piece of tissue in a plastic bag. So not like a morgue, but more like, a sandwich bag. So that was disappointing. Chapter 4, Ghosts of Medical Procedures and Episodes Past. Some of you might remember the episode Fun with Bodily Fluids, in which I mentioned how my daughter peed. Well, she peed on me, but I mean, during a medical procedure, she actually peed on medical people. Anyway, I don't know how the other daughter, the littlest one, knew about this, if it was something that my daughter bragged about to her, if she overheard my wife talking about it. But anyway, apparently that stuck in her brain, and that little girl, the littlest one, not the peer, but the littlest one, she used to be kind of hard to understand. Like, it was like talking to this angry little drunk all the time, like, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if you remember Muttley from Hanna-Barbera cartoons, but she sounded like that. But she decides when a doctor was talking to us about some sort of medical stuff, she decides it's sharing time, that she needs to get some things off of her chest. So what she tells the doctor is, my sister peed on the last doctor. And, he's a professional, polite guy. He's a urologist, so you'd think he'd, like pee stories. He started laughing, and that was good. I'm glad he saw that okay. The same daughter also told, I don't think it was an MD, but a chiropractor at one point, I saw the Holy Ghost, and he scared me. And so these are things that doctors have to hear from my children. Chapter 5, we're going to induce you. If you're a parent, you've probably heard about all kinds of stuff about pregnancy and babies and placentas and these weirdos that like to eat placentas because they're trying to repress their latent cannibalistic tendencies or something. I don't know. Anyway, my wife called and was like, the doctor says it's really time to just go have the baby. And I was like, okay. I literally work across the street from the hospital, so I was excited. I was like, this is good. I can handle this. Some of you might have heard the Prager's episode where I talked about how I basically made my wife go back to sleep till she was sure she was going to have the baby before I drove her 40 minutes to the hospital. This worked out better. I literally, I already had parking. I was parked for work. I walked across the street. I'm like, hey, how's it going? And she said they're going to induce me. And I'd heard of this term, and I always thought it was some high-tech thing, like that involved lots of drugs and, I don't know, homeostasis, I don't know. But she's laying down there, and they pull out one of those plastic bag things. How in hospitals, at least the good ones, everything is sealed in plastic. They open this thing like an otter pop, and inside is what looks like a crochet hook. And I'm like, whoa, and you just keep your mouth shut. I mean, not because I'm good at that, but I'm just too traumatized to even guess what the plan is. Are they making a sweater for the baby? They just forgot and they need to get this done before it's delivered. We have other priorities. No, they take and they literally pop her water like a water balloon with that thing. And that was disturbing. I was telling friends later, I thought when they induced babies, if they didn't do it with drugs, it was more like an exorcism. Like the doctor lifted up the woman's shirt and like leaned down to her big outie belly button and shouted, "You get out of there! You get out of there! The power of the church compels you!" But I was wrong on all counts. Apparently, though, they just get a hold of their grandma or go to Joann's Fabric and get a crochet hook. I'm sure the way medical works, it was probably $1,000 crochet hook, but that happened. Chapter 6, My Dad's a Doctor. So my dad isn't really a doctor, he's a lawyer, but before my dad became an attorney and a Marine and all that stuff, he grew up on a ranch. And I don't know if you've ever been on a ranch or like met ranching people. They're the nicest but weirdest people on earth. My first experience on a ranch, there were literally like cow bones just laying around, and I was freaking out like, "Dad, there's a dead animal." He's like, "Oh, you've obviously never been on a ranch before," because apparently there are just dead bodies everywhere. The thing about ranch people, I guess some of them love animals and like them. My dad was not one of those people. He tells me horror stories to this day about how much he hates horses. A lot of them, I think, just get really used to seeing animals as property, and like they take care of them like property, and sometimes it's through the least expensive means possible. So anyway, Dad leaves the ranch and we get stationed south of Los Angeles. I mean, these are people that pay lots of money to get their animals groomed and walked. So he didn't really fit in there. He finally relented and got my sister these 2 cats she really wanted, and they lived outside. Believe it or not, in the end, like a lot of pets, we quit taking care of them, like me and my sister did, and they became my dad's problem. One of these evil, mean cats would, like, scratch your neck if you reach down to turn the water on. And this was to get him water. He didn't give a crap. But anyway, that weird, mean, old cat that really only loved my dad got a big, nasty, swollen face. Like, it was all gross looking and all nasty. I was like, "What's wrong with him?" And my dad's like, "He has an abscess on his tooth." Which is interesting that a lawyer and a Marine can like diagnose this on the, patio table, but he somehow knew this. And then he grabbed my brother-in-law and he's like, "Dave, get some gloves." And in true ranch fashion, they take some like work gloves and they hold the cat down, and then my dad whips out a pair of pliers and he grabs the abscess tooth and pulls it out. And then the cat runs off, and we were like, "Oh my gosh, like, there's something deeply wrong with you." But you know what? The cat came back the next day, and it was fine. The swelling had gone down. It was eating again. It was totally, totally fine. And there's something to be said. I don't want to know how much money Dad saved on vet bills, but he knew how to handle that. There was also an incident where the other cat, who was nicer, ironically came home and he had a huge gash about the size of like a silver dollar ripped out of his side. His guts and everything were still inside. You couldn't see those, but his black hair was missing, and there was just this big pink ring of flesh that had gotten ripped off. And we don't know if it was from a fight or what, but it looked pretty bad. But the old man, instead of being like, "Let's take him to the vet," was like, "Get the Neosporin." So, I was a part of this unlicensed procedure where my dad had me smear Neosporin on the cat's messed up part. And he got better. He was fine. He lived a long time. All right, the final chapter, Dr. Garage. Have you noticed now how you can learn a lot of stuff on YouTube? Like just about anything. How to change your car stereo. I use it to try to be a better videographer. The stuff on there is great. And I'm just wondering, at what point will we decide to forego the whole medical establishment and just watch like knee replacement surgeries on YouTube and then do them ourselves? Not on ourselves. I mean, I guess if you're hardcore, but like on our neighbors and friends and family and, churchgoers. I'm just thinking, there are a lot of people like say it's a prosthetic knee. There's got to be a guy with an auto body shop or something like that who could, make the part for you, and then you just bring it to your house and plug it right in on somebody. So I think it would be awesome, though, like to just set up a shop/surgery in my garage, like I just sweep it out. I put some lawn chairs out. I invite people in. I put on a TV or let them watch something on their phones, and I just get to work. Vasectomies, lobotomies, hip and knee replacements, ball and socket, whatever. I just think this might be possible. If you've known anyone who's tried this, who is not currently in jail or facing charges, please let me know. I also want it to be a pet-friendly shop surgery where, like, you know, my cats can come up while I'm working on you and you can hold them and pet them and talk to them. The dog can come. He has lots of bones in the backyard. Maybe he could dig one up. We could graft that in. I'm just saying there are options, and I don't think we should be limited by a bunch of Harvard snooty types, all right? The reason why you're paying so much for these medical procedures is they spend thousands, millions, I don't know, a lot of money on, you know, that Harvard diploma. I don't have a diploma. So all my surgeries, $19.95. Not $19,000, no, $19.95. I won't charge tax because this whole thing is a little, you know, under the table. You hand me a 20, I'm giving you a nickel back, and I'll take care of this for you. Anyway, being a parent is hard. It's harder when you have to involve doctors and their bills and also dentists and things like that. So please take good care of yourself and your health and your kids and their health. Being a parent is hard. We're going to get through this.